The sun shone brightly over the skyscrapers of New York, reflecting an almost blinding glare on the glass windows of the towering concrete giants. Lucas, a 30-year-old man, was about to leave the elegant building of his company, where he held a prominent position at one of the city's largest investment firms. He adjusted his tie with a quick motion and glanced at the watch on his wrist. The upcoming meeting was crucial. He knew his career could change drastically depending on his performance that day. Hastening through the busy streets, he dodged pedestrians and cyclists rushing in opposite directions. The sound of honking taxis and hurried conversations filled the air. But Lucas was absorbed in his thoughts, mentally rehearsing the arguments he would present at the meeting. However, something made him stop. A soft yet desperate voice interrupted his train of thought. "Please, could you help me?" It was a woman with a worn appearance, dressed in dirty and tattered clothes. Her eyes, however, were deep and expressive, conveying a sadness that seemed to overflow. In her arms, she held a baby, wrapped in a dirty blanket, with pale skin and slightly parted lips. The scene was heart-wrenching. Lucas hesitated. The image of the baby, so vulnerable and defenseless, made his heart race. He looked at his watch again. Time was passing, and the meeting was approaching, but the woman's expression held him captive. He remembered his mother, who had always taught him the importance of helping others, of looking at those in need, even amidst the rush of modern life. Lucas hesitated, his mind torn between professional responsibility and the human call before him. "What do you need?" Clara, the woman, seemed surprised by the question. She looked at him with a mix of hope and skepticism. I just need some food and water for my baby. He's not well." Lucas crouched to her level, examining the baby. The small face was pale and the eyes were barely open. A surge of protection and compassion overwhelmed him. What was a business meeting? A simple appointment in his agenda, compared to the life of a child. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision. "I'll help," he said, without thinking. The time he would lose in his meeting seemed insignificant now. "Where do you usually stay?" "Near the subway station at the corner of 34th Street, Clara replied, her voice trembling, but there was a glimmer of gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you. You don't know how much this means to us." Lucas stood up, feeling a wave of determination. He didn't just want to help, he needed to. Life wasn't just about numbers and financial projections. There was a side he had neglected, a side that was crying out for his attention. "Wait here a moment," he said, and quickly walked towards a nearby store. He bought water, some snacks, and a small blanket. Time was running out, but the urgency of his gesture was stronger than any corporate commitment. When he returned, he saw Clara still sitting on the sidewalk, holding the baby with a distant look. "Here," Lucas said, offering the items. "I hope this helps." Clara's eyes lit up with gratitude as she took the items. "Thank you so much," she exclaimed, her voice choked with emotion. "It's so hard. Sometimes it feels like we're invisible to the world." Lucas felt a pang of pain upon hearing her words. He had become part of that invisible world, focused on his ambitions and achievements, unaware of the realities that existed beyond his circle. He sat down beside her, wanting to understand more about her life. "What happened to you?" he asked, curiosity guiding his voice. "How did you end up in this situation?" Clara hesitated, looking at the baby who was now asleep in her lap. I used to be a fashion designer. I had a bright future until an accident happened. I lost everything, my jobs, my home, everything. Lucas watched her intently, feeling the pain in her words. The life he led seemed so distant from hers, and yet here they were, sharing a moment of connection. "And the baby? What's his name?" "Ethan," Clara replied, gently stroking the baby's head. "He's the only thing that keeps me going. I can't give up on him." Clara's words resonated deeply with Lucas. He felt an inexplicable connection with this woman and her child, something that couldn't be ignored. He realized there was a world of challenges and stories behind those appearances that he had never seen before. The reality of life on the streets was not just a social issue, it was a complex web of pain, struggle, and hope. "You shouldn't be in this situation," Lucas said, determined not to let it pass. "There are things we can do to change this. You need help." "Help?" Clara looked at him, almost skeptical. "People often promise help, but then they disappear. I don't want to be just another story you hear and forget." "I'm not like that," Lucas said, feeling the intensity of the moment. "I genuinely want to help. I'll do whatever I can." She stared at him for a long moment, distrust mingling with hope. Silence enveloped them as the noise of the city continued around them. The atmosphere was charged with possibilities, and Lucas felt a change within himself, a determination he hadn't known until that moment. "If you'll allow me, I want to get to know you better, Clara. I want to understand your story, your struggles." She hesitated, as if weighing the implications of his offer. Finally, she nodded slowly, and Lucas felt that he had taken the first step in a journey that would change not only Clara and Ethan's lives, but also his own. The meeting that had seemed so crucial now felt insignificant, a mere formality in light of the real importance of connecting with another person. "Let's go then," Clara said, a faint smile appearing on her tired but hopeful face. "The day is still long, and maybe we can find a place to sit and talk." And so, amidst the chaos of New York, a young millionaire and a homeless woman began a conversation that promised to transform not only their lives, but also their understanding of what truly mattered. Lucas watched Clara with an intensity he couldn't fully understand. The woman, with her disheveled hair and ragged clothes, displayed a sorrowful beauty, marked by a suffering that seemed to have seeped into her soul. The baby in her arms, wrapped in a dirty blanket, looked at him with a pair of large, curious eyes, though his fragility was evident. The young millionaire, who had always been surrounded by luxury and comfort, felt a pang in his heart upon encountering this scene. "Are you okay?" Lucas asked, his voice trembling slightly. He sat down on the ground next to Clara, trying to establish a more human connection. I'm trying," Clara replied, her voice soft but laden with pain. "Ethan, my son, needs food and a safe place. I don't know where else to go." Lucas looked at the baby, who seemed so vulnerable. "Ethan? That's a beautiful name," he said, trying to make a connection. "How long have you and he been out here?" "A week," Clara murmured, looking down. "I used to have a job, a life. I was an interior designer, but everything changed in an instant." The revelation took Lucas by surprise. Always surrounded by people seeking success and recognition, he had never imagined someone so talented could end up living on the street. "What happened?" he asked, feeling the need to know more. "An accident. A car lost control and hit me. I was taking Ethan to the park. Since then, I've lost my home, my job, and my dignity." Clara looked at Lucas, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Life on the streets isn't easy. People pass by and look at me as if I were invisible." Lucas felt a burning intensity inside him. It was a mix of compassion and indignation. "You're not invisible. I'm here and I want to help," he said firmly. "I can buy food and clothes for you and Ethan. What do you need?" Clara hesitated, a look of distrust crossing her face. "You don't have to do this. I don't want to be a burden." "No one is a burden when asking for help," Lucas replied, his voice resolute. "We all face tough times and need support. Let me help. What do you need most right now?" "Food and some warm clothes for Ethan," Clara answered, her voice now a bit more confident. "And maybe a blanket." "Okay." Lucas stood up, feeling a determination he had never experienced before. "I'll get that for you, please. Stay here." He began to walk away, but Clara called out to him. "Wait," she said, her expression changing rapidly. "You shouldn't be concerned about this. It's not safe for you here." "I care," Lucas replied, looking into her eyes. "And what do I have to lose? What do you have to lose? I'm not just a businessman in an expensive suit. I'm a human being who cares." Clara smiled sadly, and Lucas felt his heart melt. He had no idea what he was doing, but something inside him was urging him to act. With one last look at Clara and Ethan, he walked away. As he moved through the busy streets of New York, Lucas reflected on the life he led. He had always been so focused on his work, on accumulating more and more wealth, that he had never stopped to think about what really mattered. The people around him were so absorbed in their own problems that they had become indifferent to others' suffering. It was as if the city was alive, but the souls inhabiting it were dead inside. He entered a convenience store, his mind still echoing Clara's words. What could he possibly buy for a woman and a baby who had lost everything? He grabbed packages of food, healthy snacks, and couldn't resist picking up a small toy for Ethan, a gesture that seemed insignificant but carried great meaning for him. As he left the store, he felt a little lighter. At the same time, a shadow of doubt lingered over him. Was he really doing the right thing? He glanced at his watch, remembering the upcoming meeting. But the urgency of the appointment was overshadowed by the desire to help Clara and Ethan. He hurried back, driven by a force he didn't fully understand. When he arrived at the spot where he had left Clara, he found her exactly as he had left her, but now there was an expression of hope in her eyes. "You came back!" Clara exclaimed, her eyes shining. "Of course I did," Lucas replied with a smile. He set the bags down and began unpacking the items. "Here are some things for you and Ethan. I hope this helps." Clara looked at the packages of food and clothes, and a wave of gratitude washed over her. "You really didn't have to do this," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "But thank you. This means so much to me. I want to help. I can't remain indifferent to what you're going through," Lucas replied, watching her as she began to unwrap the items. "Ethan deserves the best, just as you do." She looked at the baby, who was beginning to cry, and immediately started to soothe him. "Sorry, dear. Mommy's here," Clara said, rocking him gently. "You know what I really need is a second chance. I don't want to live like this." Lucas felt a pang in his heart. "Life is full of new beginnings," he said. "I don't know how, but I want to help you find a way. What do you think about us looking for a shelter or some social assistance?" Clara hesitated, looking down. "What if I fail again? What if there's no hope?" "You won't fail. You've already taken the first step by accepting help. Sometimes life knocks us down, but true strength is in getting back up, and I'll be here to help you," Lucas assured her, feeling a growing connection between them. "You're different," Clara whispered, looking at Lucas. "Most people just pass me by without a second glance. You actually care. I care because you're a valuable person, Clara. Everyone deserves a chance. Shall we find a way to make this work together?" Lucas smiled, feeling more determined than ever. Clara smiled back, though there was still a trace of sadness in her eyes. "You're an angel. I don't know how to thank you." Lucas shook his head, humility filling him. "You don't need to thank me. Just let me help." As they walked together, Lucas noticed how the world around him seemed different. The streets were more than just a backdrop of hustle. They were a labyrinth of untold stories, of lives struggling to survive. He was beginning to realize that there was much more to life than business ambitions and the pursuit of wealth. Human interactions, love, and solidarity, these were the true treasures. "Do you remember what your life was like before?" Lucas asked, curious to learn more about Clara's past. "I was happy, or at least I thought I was. I had a career, friends, and dreams, but everything fell apart in an instant. The accident took everything from me, and I found myself alone, not knowing who to turn to," Clara replied, her voice trembling. "That must have been devastating," Lucas said, feeling a deep empathy. "But you're not alone now. I'm here." "Yes, you are. And that means a lot to me," Clara whispered, looking at the baby in her arms. "Ethan deserves a better future. I just need to find a way back." Lucas felt a weight in his heart. He knew Clara's journey would be long and difficult, but he was determined to be a part of it. "Let's find that path, Clara. Together we can discover a new hope." Lucas walked through the streets of New York, now with a purpose beyond his business commitments. In the days following his unexpected encounter with Clara, he visited her regularly, bringing supplies and sharing moments that, though simple, seemed to carry profound meaning. He was drawn to the strength that the woman exuded, even amidst the adversity surrounding her. Each visit was a new opportunity to learn more about her story and, in a way, rediscover his own. That sunny afternoon, Lucas headed to the park where he used to find Clara. He had brought a backpack full of groceries and baby clothes for Ethan, the baby she carried with her. As he approached, he saw Clara sitting on a bench, with Ethan wrapped in a tattered but clean blanket. Her eyes lit up when she saw him, and a shy smile spread across her face. "Hi, Lucas!" she exclaimed, clapping her hands enthusiastically. "Did you bring food?" "Of course, and some new clothes for Ethan," he replied, opening the backpack and carefully pulling out the neatly packed items. "I hope he likes them." Clara extended her hands and received the packages. "Thank you. You don't know what this means to me. It's not just food. It's a piece of hope." As Clara unwrapped the food, Lucas sat down beside her. He watched the gentle way she handled the baby, touching his face with a tenderness that spoke more than 1,000 words. Lucas's heart warmed, seeing the connection between mother and child. Ethan, with his small, curious eyes, seemed to recognize Lucas and smiled, as if acknowledging a friend. "How have you been feeling?" Lucas asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had formed. "Better, actually," Clara replied, looking at the ground for a moment before meeting Lucas's gaze. "With each of your visits, I feel like I'm a little closer to achieving something better. Sometimes it's hard to believe that I can start over." "You have to believe, Clara. Life can be cruel, but there's always a chance to change things," Lucas said, feeling a deep empathy for her. "You know, I used to be a fashion designer," Clara began, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "Life was different. I loved what I did. I was so involved that I didn't even realize when everything fell apart." "How did that happen?" Lucas asked, interested in her story. Clara sighed and looked up at the sky, as if searching for the right words. "An accident. One moment of distraction and everything was gone. My job, my home, and my love. He's gone too." "Your love?" Lucas repeated, feeling a chill in his stomach. "Who was he?" "It was Tomas," Clara replied, her voice now almost a whisper. "A college friend who became everything to me. He was talented, ambitious, and I loved him. But after the accident, he couldn't handle the pressure. He distanced himself." Lucas fell silent, his thoughts spinning. Tomas, the former college friend, was someone he knew well. The two had been part of the same social circle, sharing parties and late nights of hard work. It was hard to imagine that someone so full of life could become part of such a tragic story. "I didn't know Thomas was with you," Lucas said, his mind struggling to piece things together. "He was always a good person, but, well, we all have our own demons." "Yes," Clara agreed, looking at Ethan, who was now asleep in her lap. "He was fighting his own ghosts, and I couldn't save him." Lucas felt a wave of compassion for Clara. He saw not just a homeless woman, but an artist who had lost everything. "And you? What do you want to do now?" "I want to start over, but I don't know where to begin. The city seems so vast and, at the same time, so oppressive," Clara replied, her voice choked. "I just need an opportunity." "You know I'm here to help, don't you?" Lucas said, summoning his courage. "We can look for a shelter, something that offers more comfort for you and Ethan." Clara's eyes lit up with hope. "Would you do that for me? I don't want to be a burden." "I never thought you were a burden. In fact, it's been quite the opposite. You've taught me more than you realize," Lucas replied, feeling a growing connection between them. "I just don't want this to interfere with your life. You have a brilliant career ahead of you, and I'm just a homeless woman," Clara said, insecurity evident in her voice. "Clara, you're not just a homeless woman. You're a mother, an artist, and above all, a fighter. We all face difficulties, and there are times when we need help. That doesn't make you any less valuable," Lucas asserted, his sincerity shining through. She smiled, and Lucas realized it was the first time he had seen a genuine smile on her lips. It was a smile that seemed to bring back the life she had lost. "Thank you, Lucas," I feel like I can trust you, Clara said, her voice soft but firm. And I want to help. Let's go on this journey together, okay? He replied, feeling that somehow this commitment was changing his own life. As they talked, Lucas felt a weight on his heart. He was getting involved in a way he had never imagined. The meetings and contracts seemed so distant now, as if they had never truly mattered. He was here, facing Clara and Ethan, and all he wanted was to offer a little hope amid the darkness. They continued to talk about dreams and what they could do together. Hours passed, and the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, as if the universe itself was celebrating this unexpected friendship. With every word exchanged, Lucas felt more connected to Clara. He didn't know what the future held, but he was determined to stand by her in this quest for a new beginning. And as the city lights started to twinkle, he realized that, at that moment, he was exactly where he needed to be. Lucas stopped in front of the shelter, an old and worn building that contrasted with the shining skyscrapers of New York in the background. A feeling of discomfort settled in his chest. He had promised Clara he would help her find a safe place, but the reality of the shelter hit him like a punch to the stomach. He looked at the entrance, where some women and children huddled, trying to find a bit of human warmth amid the coldness of life on the streets. "Come on, Lucas," he murmured to himself, taking a deep breath. "You're here to make a difference." As he entered, the smell of disinfectant mixed with the scent of simple food and the cries of children echoed through the corridors. A middle-aged woman, wearing a worn apron, greeted him with a tired smile. "Hello, young man. Are you here to help?" She had a warm voice, but her eyes reflected a life of sacrifice. "Yes, I'm here on behalf of Clara," Lucas replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Oh, Clara, she's a good girl. Although life has been hard on her, she always brings a spark to our shelter." The woman smiled nostalgically. "Come, I'll show you where she is." Lucas followed the woman through the shelter's corridors, observing the mothers trying to calm their children, some with tears in their eyes, others with a look of determination. Each step he took made him feel an increasing empathy for those women who, like Clara, fought daily to ensure a future for their children. "You care about the children, don't you?" The woman interrupted him as they stopped in front of a room where Clara was sitting in a corner, rocking Ethan in her arms. "Yes, very much. I want to do something for them. For Clara and the baby." Lucas replied, feeling a pang in his chest as he saw Clara, looking so vulnerable, yet still with a silent strength. The woman smiled again, but her gaze had a depth that left him unsettled. "You're in the right place, then. Here, we try to help as much as we can, but we need support. Volunteers, donations, everything makes a difference." Lucas nodded, absorbing her words. He knew he could do more than just help Clara. He could help many others as well. As he entered the room, Lucas felt his heart soften upon seeing Clara. She looked exhausted, but at the same time there was a light in her eyes that would not fade. "Hi, Clara," he said, approaching cautiously. "How are you?" "Lucas!" She smiled, and the look of relief on her face made him feel a bit lighter. "I'm okay. Ethan is finally sleeping." She looked at the baby, wrapped in a tattered blanket, and Lucas realized how much she cared for him. "I brought some things for both of you. Food, clothes." Lucas hesitated, trying to find the right words. "I want to help, if you'll let me." Clara looked into his eyes, and for a moment, the connection they had built seemed to transcend words. "You're already helping, Lucas, just by being here. Sometimes we just need someone who cares." Lucas sat down beside her, feeling the weight of his responsibilities. "I want to do more. I really do. Is there anything you need? A place to stay, perhaps?" Clara hesitated, as if the words were difficult to pronounce. I don't want to be a burden. I just wanted a chance to start over, you know? A safe place for Ethan and me." "You're not a burden, Clara. Life can be tough, but it doesn't have to be this way forever. We'll find a way," Lucas said, his determination growing. "I'll help you find a better shelter." Clara's eyes brightened momentarily, but then a shadow of doubt crossed her face. What if things don't change? What if I end up being just a beggar again? Don't think like that. You deserve a chance, and so does Ethan. We'll do this together, Lucas affirmed, holding her hand. He felt the fragility of her fingers, but also the strength that emanated from her. You're not alone. Lucas fell silent for a moment, watching little Ethan. He's so beautiful, he whispered. You take such good care of him. I do my best, Clara replied, and Lucas could hear the emotion in her voice. But sometimes I wonder if it's enough. It's enough, Lucas stated firmly. You're an amazing mother. Look at him. He needs you, and you need him. Together you can overcome this. As they spoke, Lucas couldn't help but notice other mothers in the room, each with their own stories of struggle. A woman with tangled hair rocked a baby in her arms while trying to calm an older boy who was crying. Another mother, with a face marked by stress, tried to get her daughter to eat a bit of food. The reality of the shelter was harsh, and Lucas found himself questioning his own life, his priorities, and the superficiality of his existence. Lucas, Clara interrupted his thoughts, do you really want to help? Then maybe you could do more than just provide supplies. He looked at her, curiosity growing. What do you mean? If you can, try speaking with the people who run this shelter. They need more resources. Many mothers here have children, and we don't have enough to care for them. A little donation can make a big difference. Lucas felt the weight of her words, a truth that hit him. Yes, of course. I can do that. I'll meet with them and see how I can help, he promised. Thank you, Lucas. You have no idea how much this means to me, Clara said, her words full of gratitude. You don't need to thank me. I want to do this. But as he said goodbye to Clara and Ethan, a part of him remained unsettled. The crucial meeting approaching in his professional life still weighed on his mind. He knew he should be focused on his career, but the connection he had formed with Clara and the reality she faced made everything more complex. See you soon, Clara. I'll be back tomorrow, he promised, his voice heavy with emotion. I'll be here, she replied, and Lucas noticed a glimmer of hope in her eyes. As he left the shelter, Lucas felt a mix of emotions. Clara's and other mothers' struggles affected him in ways he had never imagined. The corporate world, where he had spent most of his life, now seemed distant and hollow. He looked up at the sky, where the city lights shone like stars, but he couldn't ignore the darkness below. The life he had led until then seemed trivial compared to the daily struggles of Clara and so many other women. I need to do more, he whispered to himself, feeling that his life was about to change. I need to find a way to balance this. With these words echoing in his mind, Lucas headed home, determined to find a path that would merge his professional life with the new mission he had embraced. He knew the journey would be long and challenging, but he was ready to face whatever came, for Clara and for all those who needed help. Lucas looked out the window of his sleek office, watching the frantic pace of New York City. The sun was setting, painting the sky in orange and pink, but his mind was far from that stunning view. It was a strange feeling, a mix of satisfaction from professional success and a growing yearning for something more meaningful. Since meeting Clara and little Ethan, his life had changed in ways he had never imagined. The weight of responsibility he felt thinking about them was almost palpable. He wondered if he could truly make a difference. The meeting he had that afternoon was a success. He had secured an important contract that would ensure a good financial return for the company. But instead of celebrating, Lucas found himself thinking about how he could use part of his fortune to help those who weren't as fortunate. The time he had spent with Clara and Ethan had made him realize how trapped he was in a bubble of privilege, ignoring the realities unfolding around him. He stepped away from the window and picked up his phone. With hesitant fingers, he began typing a message to Clara, but soon stopped. What would he say? Hi, Clara. Just wanted to check if you're okay? It was such a trivial start, while inside him a whirlwind of feelings was forming. He wanted more than just to be someone who helped with donations. He wanted to be part of the solution. Determined, Lucas left the office and headed to a nearby cafe. As he sipped his coffee, ideas bubbled in his mind. A social initiative, something that could provide shelter, food, and emotional support for homeless families. He envisioned a space where mothers and children could feel safe while seeking a fresh start. The time he had spent with Clara and Ethan had shown him that the problem was much deeper than he had thought. "It's not just about giving food," he murmured to himself, drawing a curious glance from the barista. "It's about dignity. It's about hope." Once he decided what he would do, Lucas began to outline a plan. He knew that to realize such a project, he would need the support of others. With his phone in hand, he began calling old colleagues and investors, presenting the idea of a social project that could transform lives. Each call was a step closer to making his dream a reality. After several weeks of hard work and meetings with investors and local NGOs, Lucas finally managed to gather the necessary funds. He was excited, but his joy was overshadowed by growing concern for Clara. He hadn't seen her for days, and on his last visit to the shelter, she wasn't there. An unease consumed him, and he decided he needed to find out what had happened. That afternoon, he went to the shelter where he used to find Clara. The place was busier than usual, with mothers and children seeking shelter and food. Lucas felt a wave of compassion and determination. He approached the shelter's coordinator, a robust woman named Maria. "Hi, Maria. Have you seen Clara and Ethan?" Lucas asked, his voice laden with concern. Maria looked at him with a sad expression. "Lucas, I really don't know. She hasn't been around for a few days. The last I heard, she was thinking about going back to a place she'd rather forget." "A place she'd rather forget?" Lucas repeated, growing even more worried. "Do you know where that is?" "She didn't tell me, but she mentioned something about her past. Something dark. I was tempted to ask more, but you know it's hard for these people to open up." Lucas felt a chill in his stomach as he heard those words. Clara's past was unfolding as a mystery he couldn't ignore. He said goodbye to Maria and left the shelter, his mind buzzing with questions. What could have happened to Clara, and what kind of past did she have? That night, he couldn't sleep. Maria's words echoed in his mind, and he felt powerless, as if there were an invisible thread connecting his fate to Clara's. Determined not to give up, Lucas began to investigate. He searched for information about Clara's past, but data was scarce. All he knew was that she had been a talented designer, but there was little more than that. The next day, Lucas decided he needed help. He contacted a private investigator, a tough-looking man named Jack, who had been working in the field for years. "I need to find Clara. She's disappeared, and I feel that something bad has happened," Lucas explained, his voice tense. Jack looked at Lucas, sizing him up. "I understand. I'll need all the details you have about her. And also, if you have any idea where she might have gone, that would help." Lucas shared everything he knew. He mentioned the shelter, the baby, and even the ex-boyfriend Clara had mentioned in a conversation. Jack took notes, and Lucas felt a mix of hope and anxiety. He wanted Jack to find her, but he also feared what he might uncover. "I'll do my best," Jack promised, "but if she's involved in something dangerous, we need to be careful." Lucas nodded, his heart racing. He didn't know what kind of danger Clara might be facing, but he was determined to find out. He remembered how Clara had looked at him with gratitude, her strength and vulnerability intertwining in a way that had touched him deeply. He couldn't leave her behind. A few days passed, and Lucas threw himself into his work, trying to keep his mind occupied. The new social project was taking shape, and he began to feel a slight relief as he saw the changes he could make in other people's lives. But his concern for Clara didn't disappear. Each day that passed without news increased his anxiety. Finally, one night, while reviewing documents for the project, Lucas's phone rang. His heart raced as he saw Jack's name on the screen. He answered quickly. "Lucas, we have a problem." Jack's voice was serious. "I've found some information about Clara's past, and you need to know about it." "What's it about?" Lucas asked, the feeling of dread growing in his chest. "She's not just a talented designer. Clara has a dark past linked to a very influential man. The ex-boyfriend you mentioned is involved in illegal activities, and it looks like she got caught up in something much bigger than we imagined." Lucas felt as though the ground was opening beneath his feet. "What do you mean by that?" "I can't give many details right now, but you need to be cautious. Clara might be in danger, and you could be too." I'd recommend that you don't get more involved than you already are. I can't do that, Jack. I need to find her. She's in danger, and I can't just stand by while this happens. Lucas, please, think about the consequences. If this man finds out you're looking for Clara, it could put both of you at risk. Lucas hung up the phone, his heart pounding uncontrollably. He was at a crossroads, torn between his desire to help Clara and the fear of what might happen. But deep down, he knew he couldn't abandon her. He remembered her smile, the way she spoke about the future with Ethan. She wasn't just a homeless person. She was a strong woman who had fought against adversity. With renewed determination, Lucas decided he would do whatever it took to find her. He didn't know what the future held, but he was willing to face any challenge that came his way. After all, Clara and Ethan had become a part of him, and he couldn't leave them behind. Lucas walked through the streets of New York with a racing heart, his mind full of questions and doubts. Clara's absence tormented him, and the letter she had left echoed in his mind like a dark whisper. He remembered the words she had written, mentioning a past that cannot be forgotten and a man who never left her in peace. With each step, the uncertainty grew, and the urgency to find answers drove him forward. He decided to start his investigation with Clara's ex-boyfriend, a man named Raphael, who, according to her, was an influential figure in the city's shadowy circles. A quick online search revealed that Raphael had a questionable reputation, involved in dealings that went beyond legality. Lucas felt a shiver down his spine, thinking about how this figure might be connected to Clara's disappearance and Ethan's well-being. With the help of a trusted friend, a private investigator named Miguel, Lucas delved deeper into the search. Miguel was a middle-aged man with a sharp gaze and a gray beard that gave him an air of wisdom. "Lucas, we need to be very careful. Raphael is not someone to be trifled with," Miguel warned as they sat in a discreet cafe, away from prying eyes. "I just want to find Clara and make sure she and the baby are safe. I can't let this situation escalate," Lucas replied, drumming his fingers on the table, anxious. He felt the pressure mounting, not only for Clara, but for his own conscience. The connection between them had become something profound, and the thought that she might be in danger kept him on high alert. Miguel looked at Lucas with a serious expression. "We need to gather information about Raphael. He has a network of contacts that could be dangerous. If you decide to confront him, I suggest you be prepared for the unexpected." Lucas nodded, determined. "I won't stay still while Clara is in danger. We need to act quickly." In the following days, they followed leads, visiting places associated with Raphael and talking to people who might provide information. With each new discovery, Lucas felt the tension increase. He found out that Raphael frequently visited a bar in a darker part of the city, a place where shady dealings were carried out under the cover of darkness. "Let's go there," Lucas said on a cloudy day, his voice firm. "We can't waste any time." The bar was dimly lit, with a strong smell of cigarettes and alcohol. Lucas and Miguel sat in a corner, observing the interactions around them. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Miguel asked, concerned. "This place isn't safe." "I need to know what's going on," Lucas replied, his eyes fixed on the door, anxious for Raphael's arrival. Time seemed to pass slowly, and the tension in the air was palpable. Finally, Raphael walked in, a tall man with an intimidating presence. He moved with confidence, as if he knew that the world revolved around him. Lucas felt a surge of anger and determination upon seeing him. He couldn't let this man continue to threaten Clara and Ethan. "This is it," Miguel whispered, sensing Lucas's resolve. "But remember what we discussed." Lucas stood up, took a deep breath, and walked toward Raphael, who was sitting at a table surrounded by a few men. "Raphael!" he called out, his voice echoing through the bar. The man turned around, his expression of surprise quickly morphing into an arrogant smile. "Lucas, the millionaire, what brings you to this side of the city?" "I want to talk about Clara," Lucas said bluntly. "She's disappeared, and I know you're involved." Raphael laughed, a low and threatening sound. "Ah, the beggar. What do you know about her? It's not a life you'd want to get acquainted with, I promise." "I know you hurt her," Lucas retorted, feeling the adrenaline surge through his veins. "She and the baby deserve a chance to live in peace. If you have anything to do with what happened, I won't stop until I uncover the truth." Raphael's amusement vanished, and his gaze turned cold. "Be careful what you wish for, Lucas. Some secrets are better left buried, and you don't know who you're dealing with." Lucas stepped closer, his eyes locked on Raphael's. "I'm not afraid of you. If anything happens to Clara or Ethan, I will do everything in my power to expose you." Raphael smiled, but there was a menacing glint in his eyes. "Do you really think you can intimidate me? You don't know the power I hold. And by the way, Clara is a far more complex woman than you imagine." Lucas hesitated for a moment, but determination surged back. "I won't let you get away with this. If you don't cooperate, I'll go to the police." "You have no idea what you're getting into," Raphael said, rising from the table. "And remember, Lucas, the powerful always have their ways of protecting what's theirs." With that, he turned and left the bar, leaving Lucas in shock. Miguel approached, sensing the tension in the air. "What happened? You were about to start a war." "I can't stand by. I need to find out what he meant by more complex. What is Clara hiding? What's happening to her?" Lucas murmured, frustration spilling over. "We need to be cautious. This situation can become dangerous quickly," Miguel warned, but Lucas was resolute. He couldn't just leave things as they were. Clara and Ethan needed him, and he wasn't going to give up. That night, while Lucas tried to sleep, his mind continued to spin around Raphael's words. He recalled the letter Clara had left, the stories she had told about her past, and the love she had lost. There was something deeper there, a connection he still couldn't fully understand. Suddenly, his phone vibrated, interrupting his thoughts. It was an anonymous message with just one sentence. "The truth about Clara is closer than you think. Be careful who you trust." Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. What did this mean? What else was hidden in the shadows of Clara's past? He knew the search for the truth was just beginning, and the next step could change everything. With renewed determination, he prepared to face whatever lay ahead. The connection with Clara would guide him, and he would not rest until she and Ethan were safe.